Hi guys, some of you have suggested to do non-games tutorials. So from now on I'll probably have two types of tutorials, one for games and the other one for general type software. And they'll be called respectively, so you'll be able to easily determine whether you would like to watch the tutorial or skip it depending on what kind of tutorial it is. Games one will have game its name and the other one will have software. So for today we'll be doing a calculator program which is used to teach computer science year one or programming year one because it's kind of simple and sort of easy to get the concept right. So yeah, you can create your new project or use existing one. And I'm going to create a new package. It's actually important to create a new package for this tutorial because we'll be using a proper MVC pattern for the application because it's non-game software, so it's much easier to do so. And we'll be defining our UI user interface in a file called XML, which is XML based document for defining UI in JavaFX MVC. First of all, we'll create a class, our main class, called app, which is going to be just that for now. Then we'll need a controller, and the model, and our view is going to be defined in a file called fxml. So create new file ui.fxml. It's a standard, well, almost standard XML file, and there are certain things that need to be defined, which I'm going to steal from one of the other applications, that part. At this point you may want to create a separate fxml file for future reference because all of this stuff is pretty much the same for each fxml file because these are like definitions of classes and things like that. So the first line is the XML definition. Then we have our imports, like we have imports in our Java classes. So it's pretty much the same. So we could use those names as types. Here we will have our root node, which we usually create by calling method createContent, but in this case we'll be using fxml to generate user interface for us. Okay, so the calculator application is the one that is open right now, is the built-in calculator on Windows. I believe on all other platforms you'll have something similar. So this is the standard view, and this is something that we're going to be modeling. So this looks like elements are in the vertical layout. The thing on the top is probably a stack pane that we could do. So we'll start off by defining our root node, which is vertical box. Yeah, by the way, this could be created, this fxml file should be created in by a program called Scene Builder, which comes together or may come together with the FX Eclipse plugin to the Eclipse. But if you don't have the application, then you can do it manually, and that's why I'm doing manually in case you haven't got the program. So this could be a stack pane with alignment center. So this is, alright, we'll need to set controller first. The controller is the class that will be creating connection between our model, which is this file, and our view in this file. And you will need to specify full qualified name in the class, which is package name dot the name of the class that is our controller. And this will be automatically injected by XML loader when we do the loading part, the parsing part, which is slightly later. And this could be pretty much anything, I think, because it's an XML namespace for FX. These properties come from the actual classes. So this is stack pane class. And if there is a set method, this means that this property can be set using fxml document. Alignment center, this stuff around looks like a rectangle. Also make sure that you do these imports. Not all of them are needed, but it's just easier to have most of them here so that we don't need to worry about syntax errors like it might state that rectangle class or rectangle type is not found or something like that. And you might spend quite a lot of time figuring out what the actual problem is. So rectangle, fill, transparent, stroke, gray. We might as well specify width of the application. Preferred width 300, preferred height 300, width 250, height 50, and that'll do for the rectangle. Then we have text object within the rectangle or within the stack pane. Text, there's nothing really to define, although we will need to be able to modify the text from the controller class, which means that we need to have an ID for that element, which is done by typing fx :id and assigning an ID. And this is going to be our output text object. And after that we could type something like that with the annotation of fxml, and if we type it exactly like this with so it has exactly the same ID as the field of the name of the field and has the same type, which is text, then this particular object, once created, will be injected into the controller. So we don't need to actually create an instance of this type. Alright, so we've done the stack pane. We'll do just a simple version, so we'll have the numbers and the 4 basic arithmetic operators and the equals sign to calculate. We can do this using a horizontal box, I think. Spacing 10. Also put spacing here so that there is a space between objects, between elements. And within the horizontal box, so it's going to be a single row, button, text, 7, preferred width of 50, and we can also set font here, although we might want to use the same font across all the buttons, which means that we'll need to define a font as a sort of variable, if you want. So font fx ID. We need to create an ID so that we could refer to it later. It is like kind of reference in Java. So if we call it font with size 18, it should be large enough. And then we can refer to it using the $sign. Also, don't worry if you don't get this correctly the first time. I will upload this to GitHub and provide you with the link, because there are a lot of things that could go wrong, and if you mistype something, syntax errors in XML documents are really difficult to track down. Although it will tell you what the line number is. Now we also need to add OnAction. So basically, method to be called on click of the button. It's a void process numpad. It takes action event, and this event is the event that is generated when we press the button. Make sure to import JavaFX action event. OnAction hashtag to signify that we're typing name of the method, which should be found in the controller class, and if it isn't found, then it will complain. So ProcessNotAdd. The only valid methods are the ones that have either this signature that take action event, or this signature that have nothing, so they don't take any arguments. I'll just copy and paste this. And then we're going to copy and paste the whole thing. So this is the next row, which is 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. It's going to be 0, and the equal sign. Oh yeah, we also need to have those operators. That's division. And we don't really want to call ProcessNotAdd because it is not a number, so we might as well define a new method in the controller class called ProcessOperator with exactly the same signature. That's minus, and I should replace this with plus, and we'll just make the 0 bigger by setting 100, and so it's plus 50 and plus 10 spacing, so at 110. That should be alright, I think. Now, yeah, let's just let it for a second. Get back to our application class, or the starting class. Extends application. We need to implement the start method. In our main method, we're simply call launch JavaFX application. Right here, instead of calling create content as we usually do, we will make the fxml loader load the content by calling get class get resource and passing the name of the resource, which is ui.fxml, which is this file right here. Make sure it has exactly the same name. Also make sure they're in the same package, otherwise it won't be able to find it. Now, primary stage, set scene, new scene, and pass root as the node, as the root of the scene graph. Finally, we can show the stage. Now that should work if there are no syntax errors, and it does. So that's what we have, something similar, and that's alright, that will do. Although we might want to position everything in the center. We can do this easily by setting alignment to center. Okay, that didn't work out the way I expected it to work. Yeah, because horizontal boxes are placed here, so technically each horizontal box has to be centered. Spacing, alignment, center. Yeah, that's much better. We might want to reduce the width of our output rectangle to 30. Yeah, that's perfect. Now we can, right, our buttons do nothing at the moment. Well, they call this method, but the method does nothing. So in ProcessNotAdd, what do we want to do? So we have our output, which is already injected at this point. So the events occur in this particular order. First of all, the controller is created, instance of this controller. Then, as it parses the UI XML file, those methods get injected into the controller. So, which means that at this point it is already fine to use those fields. So ProcessNotAdd, we will need to obtain the string value of the button that pressed or was pressed, and we get this by calling event getSource, because the source of the object, the source of the event is the button that was pressed. So we need to typecast it to button and then obtain get text from it. Right, get source. Oh yeah, I haven't import button yet, so it doesn't know what to do. There we go. So this returns the text of the button, which is the text that is on the button. But first of all, we typecast it to button because we get a generic object. And finally, we get the value. Now that we've got the value, we can set output text to output get text. So we basically append the value at the end. 4, 5, 6. Yeah, as you can see, it displays on the screen, although we might want to change the font of the output text as well by doing this. Right. Right, the operator. Operator, we pretty much do the same. We then check if it doesn't equal the equal sign, because this is the final calculate sign. So if it's not this symbol, then we need to set our operator, which is going to be a string in our case, just to keep things simple. But ideally, this operator field should be of type enum, so you would define your own enum called operator or basic arithmetic operator, and then just define all of those possible values in there. Else we do the calculation here. Alright, that's all for now for this class, because we haven't still implemented the actual application logic. So the controller, as you've guessed, it kind of makes a bridge between the application logic, which is in the model class, and the view. And this way you can easily change the view, change the model without them being tightly coupled. The model will have a method calculate. We're going to be operating with just long data types, not doubles, again to sort of simplify the case. We take number 1, we take another number, and we perform some sort of arithmetic operation on them, which we take as a string. We can then switch our string case plus return number 1 plus number 2. And if we haven't found the actual case, we'll just return unknown operator. That should be minus, multiply, divide. And we're just going to place the arithmetic operators. In this particular case, with division, you need to ensure that number 2 isn't 0. So if number 2 equals 0, just return 0. Otherwise, you'll encounter division by 0 exception or something similar sounding exception. Alright, so we've done our application logic, which is kind of simple, and then we call it here. So we perform the calculation. Now we need to, because we only have one output screen, we somehow need to cache our first number. So by default, operator is empty. If operator is not empty, then return, because we've already pressed some operator. Operator set value, number 1, we parse along. Which we get from the output, the text. We don't really need to worry about other sort of parsing exceptions, because we don't let the user type within the text field. This is just a label that is being added numbers using the numpad. Although this might overflow the 64-bit, because we don't limit the number of elements that we could type on the screen. I wonder if it's going to throw an exception if it overflows. Anyway, else if operator is empty, so it's the other way around. So at this point we have pressed the calculate button, but the operator is empty, so we don't do anything because we don't know what to do. And if we haven't returned from the method, this is where we perform the actual calculation. Output set text. We need to create an instance of our model first. Model calculate number 1. Number 2 is what we parse from the outputs. And the operator is the operator field. We also need to convert it to a string by calling string.value of this long that is being returned from the calculate method of our model class. We then clear the operator. We don't really need to clear number 1, although we do need to have a flag for clearing the output, because if you then hit ProcessNotAdd, this will just keep adding numbers to the number it has on the screen, which we don't want. Start. So if start, just clear the screen and set start to false. This is sort of a very cheap way of getting around the problem. And at this point we sort of just reset start. Okay, let's try this out. 100 plus, so it set the value. Oh, we need to clear the screen at this point. Output set text, nothing. Let's try again. 100 plus, that will clear a screen. 200 equals. Alright, we haven't output set text. So that's the one. Oh, that still calls ProcessNotAdd. That should call the process operator. The equals, yeah. It calls ProcessNotAdd. It should call process operator. 100 plus 200 equals 300. Plus 300 equals 600. And you can just keep doing that. Minus 600 equals 0. Multiply by 5, still 0. Plus 5 gives us 5. Divide by 5 gives us... Okay, that didn't give us quite what we wanted because of... Oh, it still says plus. Apologies for that. Plus divide by 5 divided by 5 equals 1. Divide by 0 should give us 0 because of this little check that we introduced. Alright, that seems to be working largely, or mostly. I will upload this on GitHub and provide you with the link. And I think this is all for this particular tutorial. Let me know if you want to see more of software or game software, and we'll see how that goes. Thanks for watching.